Okay, everybody, looks like we're going to get started. Paul's going to do his best to get us going while we get the laptop. So, three quick announcements. And if you've been in this track, sorry, I want to repeat them again. Please silence your phones. Thank you. If you use your QR code on the back to access the website, that second link is the surveys. Please do the surveys. You could do one for each session. And you'll get, for every survey you submit, as long as you put your name down, you could do it anonymously if you want, but if you put your name down, you get an extra entry into the raffle tomorrow. They're giving away great prizes. And then the third plug, of course, is please visit our sponsors. We cannot do this without them. All right, so Paul's going to get started. Happy to introduce Paul. I've known Paul for a long time, so when I saw that he was speaking today, I was very excited to moderate this track. So here is Paul. Take it away.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, we'll hopefully give you some visuals shortly.
Hey, everybody. Let's see if it comes up. Oh. Okay. Just do one administrative thing. Let me know if you're not coming. Lockpick guy coming back? I just work with him. We can use that. Okay, what does this remind you of? What does this remind you of? Which incident? CrowdStrike. Nothing against CrowdStrike. We are a customer. The tool. That's how you say it there. But how many folks here use CrowdStrike or any other EDR platform? Hopefully, lots of people use EDR, right? How many people had your EDR platform on your risk register as of July 19, 2024? One person, one very smart person. That person probably has everything on their risk register, including probably. So very few of us did. And we're going to be talking today about the danger in tools, and the real danger is can I type and talk at the same time. So I'm not a technologist. If you couldn't tell, can you hear me? Yeah. No one ever told me what. So, not a technologist at all. I know how to use my computer. Maybe I know how to translate technological language into maybe business language, risk management language. But I'm here today to talk about the skills that all of you have that can help you manage AI, help you manage the kinds of risks that you get from third-party tools. You'll be using in AI. Okay. So we're going to be talking about identifying the problem in the first instance. We're going to talk about how to identify risk in the framework of AI. And then we're going to talk about how your skills fit into them. I think I would have had a better disaster recovery plan executing right now. Well, if we didn't have CrowdStrike, I could have used a thumb drive to get it off of my. You interrupted me in the middle of my password. Thank you very much. I'm going to start again. It's a very long password. Shut up. I'm putting my password. Password. I dare you to guess my password. Okay. Too bad. Too bad. Okay, so we're going to identify the problem in the first instance. And as I mentioned, the problem can come from the tools that we use. For example, describe a tongue depressor. How would you describe a tongue depressor? Take your time by putting in my two-factor code.
A wooden stick.
Okay. More.
Flat.
Yeah.
Elongated wooden stick.
Okay. Flat, elongated.
Firm.
Is that?
Firm.
Firm. Okay. It's got to be flat. It's got to be firm. It's got to be elongated. It's got to fit in the mouth. Smooth, I guess. Ergonomic. It's got to be handheld in some fashion. No splinters like that one. Sterile, right? Maybe it's got to be used in a medical scenario. So
else you can think of that kind of fits that bill?
Sanitary?
Oh, sanitary. It's got to be sanitary. So we know what a tongue depressor looks like, right? Kind of long, flat piece of wood. Thank you very much. Anything else you can think of that would fit that bill? Oh, that's a great point, right? We're kind of often blinded by what's immediately in front of us. How about a scalpel, right? So kind of elongated, flat, fits in the mouth. You can use it in your hand. It's sterile. No splinters. No splinters with the scalpel. And one end will work. One end will work as a tongue depressor. The other one, not so much. And that one end that works doesn't really work for the doctor. It's holding it, right? So, go slideshow, current slide. So when we're thinking about the tools that we use in relation to AI, we have to realize a few different things as I step on my laptop. Not only are they tools, they're not purpose-built tools. Many of them are. Certainly in the generative field, they build a model and then they figure out what it can do, right? So if you ask generative AI to give you something that's flat, ergonomic, sterile, no splinters, you make it a scalpel and not a tongue depressor in the first instance. I find this image interesting as well. The other interesting thing with generative AI is attorneys love it because we can put images in our presentations now. There's no copyright issue. But I asked for one tongue depressor, it gave me 3. I asked for a scalpel, it gave me a scalpel on this kind of blue background. And I'm wondering, like, why this added stuff? I just wanted a simple picture of a tongue depressor or a picture of a scalpel. And does anyone know the concept of prompt transformation? Prompt transformation. A couple nodding heads. So prompt transformation is a function of some generative AI platforms, whereby the AI platform is trying to figure out what we stupid humans actually want. Anybody here dabbled in generative AI? We probably all used it. We have typing mistakes, right? We have typos when we speak to AI. The way that we speak, you know, if you actually kind of looked at a written transcript of what you say when you speak, the English is probably not very good from a grammatical standpoint. We make mistakes. We're lazy. You'll see 1 or 2 of them in this presentation. Prompt transformation is to clean up the user input, to make sure that the tool is giving the user what the user wants, or what the tool thinks the user wants. So putting this together, you know, I got my images from Copilot. That's the platform I use primarily. So Microsoft OpenAI based. And Copilot used to, they don't do it as much anymore, under the prompt bubble, they'd say, hey, try this. You know, I can give you a new recipe for that, or work out a schedule for this, or I can plan your vacation with these parameters. And the thing that kept popping up for me was, create my avatar. So Copilot kept saying, hey, I want to create your avatar. Ask me to create your avatar. I said, okay, create my avatar. And I wondered, how the hell would it do it? It couldn't see me. It didn't know anything about me. I didn't have the camera on. I've got a little security thing in front of the camera, so I knew it wasn't watching me. And so it gave me a couple really random images. Mostly male, probably pretty telling, because I didn't say anything to it about my gender. Mostly professional. I don't know how it inferred that about me. But nothing really looked at me, so I got a little peeved and I said, well, come on, give me a bald head and a goatee. I wanted to see what it could do to come up with something with a bald head and a goatee. And it gave me some stuff that kind of maybe looked a little bit like me. And then I was getting, this is like 20, 30 prompts in. I'm like, okay, well, make it look more like me. I was getting very annoyed with the platform. And this is the transformed prompt. I've been spending an hour or 2 creating images surrounding kind of AI, technology. If you pop culture references, you'll see some of those searches here in the presentation. And it took all that, it remembered all that, and it said, I'm going to make somebody that looks like that. That's the profile that it had of me. It was thinking about me. It was tracking me, profiling me, in order to figure out what I want when I said make a picture of me. And that's what it came up with. And you know, I saw this and instantly I said, well, hey, that looks a lot like me. That doesn't look a darn thing like me. Believe it or not, bald guys don't all look alike. You know, it obviously didn't like a goatee. It gave me a full beard. The eye color is wrong. But my initial reaction, that visceral reaction, hey, wow, it came up with an avatar that looks like me, kind of shows our bias. the automation bias. We have a tool that does this wonderful thing. I can't draw to save my life, and it created this picture that I couldn't create. And it kind of was thinking about how it would put a background together that would somehow fit who I was. So not only did maybe AI misunderstand me and not have any idea what I looked like or what a good avatar of me would be, but I misunderstood it. I had automation bias, other bias looking at this to say, hey, this magical thing created something that looks like me, created a piece of garbage if I was going to use that to have someone kind of identify me. So not only are we using a tool that can be maybe sharp on the wrong end, we're using a tool that's built to give us what it thinks we want. Another example, there's been reported studies of AI platforms, mostly machine learning based, that help identify or help diagnose certain health conditions based on X-ray imaging. And they're really good. They're really, really good. And doctors are really happy. Hey, this is going to help us. And a study was done, well, how were they actually identifying the, whatever it is, the cancer, whatever the image was identifying? And the machine learning platform was using a code in the bottom of the image that indicated that the X-ray was taken on a mobile unit. It just so happens you bring mobile units in where you got more sick people, right? A nursing home, et cetera. The mobile unit images had a higher incident of whatever they were looking for. And the model taught itself, well, hey, that's a good way to identify the thing. Now, that's not an invalid criteria. Certainly, you should maybe think, hey, mobile unit, take everything else into consideration. That may be a higher incidence of the issue that you're looking for. But again, finding the right answer for the wrong reasons through a tool like either generative AI or machine or deep learning can be part of the problem that we're thinking about. So the question I want to present to you, well, first of all, actually, I'm going to go back to the beginning slide that you didn't see. Who here thinks AI governance is a security issue? Not a question of securing the platform itself. Is OpenAI secure? Is my connection to this software or platform secure? But who thinks governance of your organization's use of AI is a security issue in the first instance? Great, you're in the right talk. Perfect, awesome. So we all agree, I'm done, and we can go on. Well, this is going to be no surprise to anybody. I'm going to compare the two, right? So acronyms. Who loves acronyms better than security folks, right? We love them. We've got, even if it's not a word, we like using, I don't know why it's blue. I don't know either. Yeah, who cares? Oh, that one's blue, that one's not. Anyway, big data, machine learning, the 4 V's, volume, velocity, veracity, and variety of data. Volume, velocity, veracity, variety of data. Hopefully, I just gave this room full of security professionals heartburn by hearing those things in relation to data. What makes your life worse than more data, faster data in more varieties that you've got to track and classify and secure, and that you have to make sure that you have to guard the integrity of, right? So the vast increase in reliance on large data sets is, of course, a security program, a security concern, pardon me. We, of course, deal with issues surrounding data classification, minimization, that lovely CIA triad. We're all just buyers of the AI systems that we use. Well, most of us are not creating these systems, buying them off the rack, so we're at the beck and call, we're at the mercy of the vendors out there. We don't have control about how they're designed. We've got to work through the sales cycle, cut through the BS, and figure out what the real value to the organization is. Sound familiar in the security space? These systems aren't built with governance in mind. Just like the internet and just like the networks we're working on, they're built inherently insecure, inherently flexible in the first instance, to allow for interconnectivity and to eschew controls and eschew limits on what they do. Same thing with security. Look familiar? People don't understand what the heck it is, and they think it's just an IT problem. And your users are the greatest risk, right? So this should fall squarely in your wheelhouse. Oh gosh, I guess I shouldn't have said that, because you've got a limited budget, and everybody probably already thinks this falls in your wheelhouse. I'm not saying that an organization should dump AI on the InfoSec team. What I'm saying is InfoSec is uniquely positioned to help with these issues. So let me go back through, get back to where I was. Let's talk about where we're going on this front and how we, my phone's over there, how we think about AI governance, especially through a security lens. So, spoiler alert, we're going to be talking a fair amount about NIST today and the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. And what I have up there is the definition of AI under the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. And I have it up there for this proposition. That definition, an engineered or machine-based system that can generate outputs such as predictions, recommendations, or decisions affecting our real or virtual environments. That's today's definition of technology, certainly tomorrow's. We all have devices. Many of us have devices in our hand. I just had a device that wasn't working for me. In the not-too-distant future, there's going to be very little difference between a smart and a dumb device. Dumb devices aren't necessarily going to be a thing. We're too lazy. We love the interconnectivity and the responsiveness of smart devices. So with today, what seems like a bit of an add-on or maybe kind of a new interesting thing, this is going to be pervasive. Just like security is pervasive in every device that's brought into your network. So, and that's only a recent shift in mindset, right? How long ago were we using, and we're still using, our phones for doing work with or without a mobile device management system, for example? Scope is vastly important, and you as security professionals understand how global the scope needs to be to get a good governance around your data processing activities. And then the second part of this slide, thinking about the terminology, trustworthy and ethical AI systems. Gosh, that's a hard nut to crack, right? Does ethics have anything to do with cybersecurity? Hell yes, right? Maybe we should teach more of it in the cybersecurity programs at schools. I know, it's really been less than a decade that ethics has been a core element in the cybersecurity curriculum, generally. This issue of ethics is at the core of what we do. You think back to that CIA triad. I'll give you an example of what legislators think. For a number of years in the New York legislature, the New York Privacy Act was a bill. It hasn't been passed, so it doesn't exist. But it's been a bill several times, and they came up with the idea of a data fiduciary. That if you process my data, you are my fiduciary. Fiduciary is a fancy word for you owe me all of the duties that you can think of in relation to a duty of good faith, a duty of loyalty, a duty of disclosure. You can only act in my benefit. Gosh, that's really weird, right? How many of our organizations think about data that way, that we handle personal data as the steward, as the fiduciary for the individual? That's what some lawmakers think. So that is certainly an ethical question in the first instance. And I want to take a hard left turn and talk about a way to think about that ethical question. So another AI image, how can you tell it's AI? Misspelled almanac, right? But pretty enough image. Anyone know who Aldo Leopold was? Oh, I almost saw a hand. Okay, if you do one thing and never have a chance to read this book, it's a great book. It's a thin little book, a Sand County Almanac. Aldo Leopold was an ecologist, some say kind of the father of modern ecology from the turn of the 20th century. He lived out in Minnesota, I think, and was chronicling how the Great Plains had changed from this incredibly vibrant ecosystem that existed for millennia to, in many cases, just a dead ecological desert. And the reason for that was progress without thinking about externalities. The highway system, other expansion of suburbs and cities, and extracting resources without thinking about what it does to external systems, complex external systems, like the prairie, for example, or like social systems among animals. And he came up with this idea of the land ethic, that in relation to the land, we've got to think about where the exhaust pipe is. That's what I charge each and every one of you as your organizations adopt AI. Think about where the exhaust pipe is, because you know what? There's a big exhaust pipe. There's always some externality, some issue that occurs, some effect that wasn't anticipated. And we get that in security as well, right? Adding this system is going to throw something out of balance. It's going to change your approach if you don't try and take a holistic view of what that change in your processing activities is going to do. Okay, so we're going to think about externalities in the first instance. And then we also have to think about human beings. We're all, most of us, I guess, human beings. And human beings have feelings, right? We've got biases, as we showed in relation to a prior slide. We've got feelings. How do we feel about AI? Who loves AI? Who's really, really excited about AI and the changes it can bring? I certainly am. Who hates AI? Who's really, really scared and really worried about the changes it can bring? So I'm on both sides of the fence there. So we love it, we hate it. I was in a speaking event a few days ago, and someone said something that was really kind of threw a light switch for me. I don't know why, but it was this: that IT people, in the first instance, be they kind of straight IT people or security folks, they're in the people business in the first instance, right? You deal with technology, you make sure that the technology is available, that it's secure, that it does the right thing. But that's so people can do stuff. We as human beings can no longer do much in this world without the technology that we use. So you all know this. If you're in charge of your education program and your training program at your organization, there's a lot of coaxing. There's a lot of emotional intelligence that it takes to get that work done. So we have to think about how people react to AI. And you have this love-hate relationship. Anybody know the concept of the uncanny valley? Been in the press a little bit around AI. So Masahiro Mori, a roboticist from 1970s Japan, came up with this idea that, hey, the closer something gets to an image or a kind of a representation of a human, the more humans something looks or acts, the more affinity we have for that thing, the more we like it. And that's the curve. That's that bottom curve going up. As a human likeness, as it increases along the horizontal scale, as that likeness increases, so does our affinity for that thing. And think about a stuffed animal, child of the 80s, so I had a little Voltron robot, and I love the little robot thing. But then if it gets really, really close, but it's not all the way there, it gets kind of weird, kind of icky. We have this aversion to it, a feeling of revulsion generally. Think Chucky, think zombie. There's a corpse here at the bottom of the dark line. And then as it gets closer to being human, it comes back up again. So there's this point at which we'll accept some difference from humanity, and we still like the thing. But that valley, that gap, that's a real kind of visceral reaction. The dotted line here for Mori is if you put movement into the picture. Remember my Voltron robot? We had the one that didn't move. My friend down the street had the one with batteries in it that did move. People liked his robot better than mine because it moved. That's that dotted line. Now, in relation to AI, I think the dark line is kind of machine learning and deep learning. We've had that forever now, right? It's a core part of many of the technological solutions that we deal with. It's really cool. It kind of people love the way that it can create inferences and create vision into patterns and help us recognize patterns. But gosh, you have something that sounds like us and something that speaks like us and does something like language or art or music, and then the reactions are off the scale. Does this look like anything to anyone? There we go. The Gartner Hype Cycle, right? The Gartner Hype Cycle. So for those who are familiar, 5 stages to the Gartner Hype Cycle: the initial trigger, the peak of inflated expectations, the trough of disillusionment, a slope of learning about what this thing is about, and then the ultimate plateau of productivity. So the thing that I want us all to realize is we're in for a fall, right? The last edition of the Gartner Hype Cycle in relation to generative AI put generative AI just before the peak of expectations there. And it color-coded the little dots with a timeline, saying that it'd be probably 5 years or so until generative AI reached its plateau of productivity. I mean, the plateau of productivity really is that. It's when something becomes boring and work-a-day, and we've all figured out how to use it, and how to govern it, and how to control it. But gosh, if it takes 5 years to get from the peak where we are now until any kind of normality surrounding this stuff, I don't know if I can take that level of hype. But the thing to keep in mind is this: we're all going to waste a heck of a lot of money and a heck of a lot of time as we have consolidation of providers, as we build our structures and build our organizations around tools that may not be there tomorrow, and as we learn the limitations of these tools in the real world. There's a lot of promise, certainly, but we're going to work out the kinks initially, and that's going to create a lot of revulsion and a lot of aversion. And we're going to have to deal with that in our organizations. And whoever is governing AI in your organization is going to have to deal with that. And this. So we're getting pressure from senior leadership. Gosh, the competitor next door has this, that, or the other. They've got a AI-enabled chatbot. We've got to get it. And FOMO is certainly driving the day. And as maybe you know from the security world, FOMO shouldn't be the only deciding factor in the decisions that we make. Certainly the shiniest tool isn't always the right tool. So that's kind of the problem. How do we govern this problem? So is there an algorithm? Is there a recipe that we can follow? Is there a checklist that we can use to figure out how to govern AI and come up with a trustworthy and ethical system for our organization? Or is there a shortcut? So again, AI generated, right? You can't spell. Is there a shortcut? A heuristic, right? That heuristic that I had when I saw something that I thought looked like me, the familiarity bias, the automation bias. That can be good in real life. We can make quicker decisions because of our biases. And Gen AI makes quicker decisions because of the heuristics that it uses. And that's also a major source of its flaws. But is it one or the other? Or maybe it's both. If I said to you the word framework, what's the first thing that pops in your mind? NIST. I didn't even pay these people. NIST. So the next thing that comes up on this is NIST. I went on my phone so I can track time. NIST. So, you want a framework, go to NIST. Why do we go to NIST? Do they write good frameworks? That would, more or less. A resounding more or less. Okay, NIST. What kind of things does NIST create rules for? Yeah, including school bus yellow, that's a NIST standard. Peanut butter consistency, that's a NIST standard. You can actually go to NIST and buy peanut butter. They sell exemplar peanut butter for peanut butter manufacturers so they meet a NIST standard. So the folks who make peanut butter and school bus yellow tell us how to secure our systems and how to manage AI. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but certainly you can think of some limitations that come from that generally. But I'm not here to bash NIST. I'm here to talk about how to make use of the NIST AI risk management framework. Anyone have any familiarity with the NIST AI risk management framework? A little bit. A little over a year, almost 2 years old now. And it was an attempt by NIST to give us tools to map, measure, manage, and govern the risks surrounding AI. And we'll talk a little bit about what those mean. What do you think they didn't do in the risk management framework in relation to their other frameworks? Didn't tie it in, didn't use the same language. Maybe there is a little bit of overlap. So we got NIST CSF 2.0. Hopefully some of you are familiar, and maybe some of you use it. But now 6 steps to NIST CSF 2.0. The new step is govern, right? Interesting that that was a bolt-on. Remember what we said before about how both for security and AI, both governance is a bolt-on? Well, it was a bolt-on for NIST. They thought about the technical aspects first, which was great. And they realized, oh, you need a governance system to actually make that happen, don't you? Well, with the AI risk management framework, they start with govern. And they've got 4 primary functions: govern, map, measure, and manage. And for those who are familiar, again, this is kind of its own language, but in the CSF and here in the AI RMF, you've got functions, which are the top level categories. Then you've got categories and subcategories. By the time you get to the subcategories, you've got about 100 different controls or categories, checkboxes you've got to go through to make sure you're actually doing the thing. Same thing with the NIST risk management framework. We'll talk about the complexity of it in a moment. Okay, so let's say you're doing NIST CSF, or you know of resources that help you implement NIST CSF, and you hear that NIST came up with its own standard NIST RMF, and it's got at least one overlap. What do you want to do? You want to do a crosswalk. And so anybody recognize this crosswalk? This is the NIST CSF crosswalk to HIPAA and a bunch of other standards over here. You've got this is from the Department of Health and Human Services. HIPAA is in the relevant control mappings over there on the HIPAA citations. And there, across the top, you've got function, category, and subcategory. So that's the NIST NIST CSF to HIPAA crosswalk. Very helpful. Available on the HHS website if you're interested. Okay, well, I thought I was going to solve the problems of anybody who wanted to start down the road of any security professional who wanted to start down the road of AI governance. And what did I do? I went to AI for a crosswalk. And I spent a while. My prompt started off with, okay, first and foremost, I want a spreadsheet. I was talking to Copilot, Microsoft product, so I thought it could give me an Excel spreadsheet. Give me an Excel spreadsheet that takes the functions, categories, and subcategories of the NIST CSF core. That's what this is. The core is where you have the functions, categories, and subcategories. Give me those elements from the core and map it onto the functions, categories, and subcategories of the AI risk management framework. And I asked, do you know what the CSF framework is? And I asked it to describe it to me. Looks good. Do you know what the AI risk management framework is? And I asked Copilot to describe it to me. Good. Okay, it had the knowledge base. I wanted the crosswalk. And gosh, it took a long time. It was sitting there thinking for a while. I thought it was going to kind of crash out. And at the end, this is the message I got back. Here's the graphic art that I created from you. Spoiler alert, right? I asked for an Excel spreadsheet. But here's the graphic art I created for you. It shows the crosswalk between the NIST CSF core and the NIST AI RMF core. You can see how the functions, categories, and subcategories of the two are related. Right? That's exactly what I asked for. I hope you find it useful. Smiley face. Copilot put the smiley face in there. And this is what I got. I love this picture. I can look at this picture forever. I guess the subtitle of this picture is "We're screwed," right? If Copilot can't do it for us, then I guess we've got some hard work to do. But what do you have here? You've got a crosswalk. Hey, it got that. They've got some signs there. NIST CSF that way, NIST whatever that way. I love the fact that the two, well, you do have a bit of a crosswalk, don't you? So you remember back to this thing, right? Kind of looks, bear with me, kind of looks like a tree, right? If the blue is the trunk, you've got another kind of branch and little branches sticking out, like a little tree, maybe. And then what did it do? It gave me all these trees, right? But never the twain shall meet. You actually have daylight between the two cores, right? So Copilot was telling me, yeah, that doesn't work. They actually don't. Maybe they're adjacent. Maybe you can tell how the two are pointing towards each other, but they're not going to meet up. This was a while back, so I tried it again just before this presentation, and then this is what I got. So the prompt was, give me a diagram. I knew it was going to give me something like this once it said diagram. But a diagram showing a crosswalk between the requirements of NIST CSF and the AI RMF. I don't know if this is better or worse, but good luck putting that into practice. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we use skills that we already have to do this? I've kind of given some of this away already, and this is the graphic from the NIST AI RMF core. And this is how NIST visualizes an approach to AI governance. They start with the govern step. They say, put the policies and procedures in place, have the people in place and the power structures in your organization to do all the things you're going to need to do. It's really just like any privacy privacy textbook or any kind of law book describing regulation of information security. They always say, have the governance first, create your policy, and then execute. Of course, that never happens, right? We're all building this airplane as it's flying. You get hired into an organization. Maybe they hire a CISO for the first time, virtual or otherwise, and you've got to bolt on all that security stuff to the stuff that they're already doing. A startup wants to get critical mass, and is not going to let security get in the way, maybe, of that growth. So we're never starting with govern. Where do you think we should start? Measure. Oh, I like that one. I like the map step. I like the map step personally. Know thyself, right? We've had a few presentations in this room talking about know thyself in the first instance. Know what you do. Take stock of your organization's current use of AI. Who here has an organization where you're using AI currently? You all do. You all do, right? All of someone in your organization is using AI for work purposes. If it's only using a navigation program to get somewhere, spoiler, hey, that's AI. Does that really matter to your organization? Not really. But having visibility into the full spectrum of AI usage at your organization, having amnesty for people to report. Sound familiar, right? Amnesty to report. Hey, I did something wrong from a security standpoint. I clicked on that link. Can I have some help? hey, who's using AI? Well, I'm using it for this thing over here. Is that okay? Well, let's catalog it first before we put the governance structures around it. So mapping is not only mapping the use cases, it's mapping current use cases, it's mapping future state, where you want to be, it's mapping risks arising from those use cases. And there are risks, right? So if you have regulated information and you've got folks using AI in that regard, that's a potential risk. I'm only allowed to make silly pictures for my PowerPoint, so that maybe is a lower risk profile. But you map the use cases, both present and future. You map the risk, then you measure. Once you set those categories and you know what you're looking at, you measure the actual risk in the real world. Manage that risk to your risk tolerance in your organization and have a governance structure in place to make all that happen. How many of you feel that you've got a good handle on the risk tolerance in your organization set by somebody who says, I own risk? Not a very common thing for organizations to do. Organizations manage risk, but communicating risk tolerance, setting risk tolerance, identifying it on a unified level, and setting it from the top down, very rare. Many organizations, and maybe all organizations, have varying levels of risk tolerance. Marketing's risk tolerance is going to be different than finance's risk tolerance, different than HR's risk tolerance. But if you're charged with managing the security for everybody or the AI implementation for everybody, that's got to be communicated to you in some fashion, right? That's part of the governance step. And we have that in this CSF 2.0. The governance structure there, as we'll get to in a moment, talks about having appropriate communication strategies in play. So I'm kind of getting towards the end here, so I will hurry up just a little bit. But this kind of small type slide is from the NIST AI RMF. It kind of lists the elements of a trustworthy AI system. And many of these should ring very sound very familiar to you in the security space. It's got to be safe, secure, and resilient. It's got to be valid and reliable. We need systems that produce data with integrity and preserve that integrity throughout the process. It's got to be accountable and transparent. We need logs. We need to know what this stuff does. We need policies and procedures around it, because regardless of what you do in relation to either security or AI, if it ain't in writing, it don't exist. Right? So I am a lawyer. I don't need to play one on TV, but I'll tell you, if I have to prove to a regulator or in a court of law that you are, for example, implementing the NIST AI, NIST CSF, or the NIST AI RMF, if you don't have your practices in writing, they really don't exist. And what are we doing in relation to AI? Many organizations are taking the approach on an ad hoc basis. Few are sitting down and kind of documenting step by step what they're doing. To be trustworthy, it's got to be privacy enhanced. We've got to make sure that we can both respect the privacy of individuals and also respect their wishes. For example, some of you may be at organizations subject to privacy laws where folks have the right to deletion of their data. If you have AI models that are creating profiles in relation to those individuals, can you get at the core data and delete that? Can you take them out of that model, or is it trained in perpetuity based on that information? So some primary considerations to keep in mind as we think about how to govern AI at our organizations. And I titled this talk, Leveraging Your Security Skills to Govern AI. I'm not going to give you the answer to how to do it because I don't have it. The answer is there's homework to do. And this is kind of the starting place. This is the high-level mapping of NIST CSF or AI RMF to CSF, right? We've got map there. That's certainly, it's similar to the identify step. Measurement, detection. Managing is all the good stuff under protect, respond, and recover, and govern is, of course, govern. It's the one place where they had at least linguistic overlap. So what I'd recommend that you do is take a look at this AI RMF. It's really not too long. It's in the low teens. I forget how many pages total. But it's readable, probably a little more readable than the CSF. And it will start to resound with you. And think about how your program, whatever you do under the 6 functions of NIST CSF, if that's your framework, what you do resonates in what you're reading in the AI RMF. And why should you do this? Why take on more work? Why should this be a you issue, a security issue? Well, think about this. if the organization is not willing to spend money on an information security risk assessment, will they spend money on an AI study, on looking for ways to leverage AI and increase automation, either in the security department or otherwise? You may be able to kind of ride that wave. Remember that FOMO wave that we saw with the hype cycle? You may be able to use that hype cycle to your advantage and get some projects done that may have been on the back burner, and we'll see a few of those in a moment. So just a little bit about the difference between the two frameworks. On the left, you've got the govern step from NIST AI RMF, and on the right, you've got the govern policy category from NIST CSF. And this is the closest overlap I could find, but there's more in AI RMF than you see in CSF in this comparison, right? AI RMF says you got to have policies, processes, and procedures across the organization related to several things: mapping, managing, and measuring AI risks, and they've got to be transparent and implemented effectively. Well, if they could have put anything more in that sentence, I'm sure they would have, but they did quite a bit. In CSF, it's more it's bucketed out, or at least narrowed down to: you've got cybersecurity policy in place, communicated, and enforced. To make, when you're sitting down to look at how the two relate to each other and what it means to your program, in the govern step, you've got to look at kind of govern oversight, govern roles and responsibilities, and a few other categories to get the full context. So the watchword here is they learned their lesson with CSF. CSF was very particularized, or I guess maybe they faced a daunting task when they were going from thinking in the mindset of CSF to AI RMF. And the AI RMF position statements there are very broad, very chock full of requirements, and difficult to directly tie out to a single control. So it's not going to be one-to-one controls that these tie out to. These are some of the projects, though, that you may want to think about, and some of the projects that can get double value, do double duty in relation to both information security and AI implementation. Yep. Knowing thyself, data classification, record of processing activities, getting down on paper somewhere, or on virtual paper, in an Excel spreadsheet, or however the heck you track it, everything that your organization does in relation to the sensitive data, be it personal or otherwise, that you process. Assessing risk in relation to that. Doing a data protection impact assessment, that's a term from privacy regulation. Assessing risk of what you're doing in relation to those processing activities. Not just security risk, but things like organizational risk, privacy risk, et cetera. If you need time and money to develop your policy stack, go and tell folks you need to put together some AI policies, and that you really need to do that before the organization gets too far down the line in relation to implementation. And you may get budget or time or focus to do that. Red teaming. Pen testing, vulnerability assessments. If you're going to use tools, if you have proprietary tools that you're going to use, build that into your process. There are many organizations that can help red team and pressure test your AI implementation. Next time you have an incident, put a deep fake of the CEO in it. That'll be awesome. That'll really get someone's attention, right? If you can, it's really not hard to imagine how really any of us with any presence on the internet could have that happen. But think about how you can build AI-related issues into your tabletop exercises, incident response planning. And of course, ask those dumb questions in relation to everybody who's selling you something in relation to AI. Ask them, how do you align your product with the NIST AI risk management framework? And I heard in a talk that if it ain't in writing, it doesn't exist, so show me your governance documents. Show me your overview of how you manage risk in relation to AI. The same thing that you do with your vendors, right? Unfortunately, there isn't a standard questionnaire you can use with AI right now. But if they can't show you and tell you why their product is trustworthy and ethical, look for the next vendor who can. Because otherwise, you're going to be bolting that on once it's brought into your organization. Okay, really no time left, so I'll just kind of power through the next few slides. A few other frameworks. If anyone's interested, I can make these slides available. These are two frameworks in the education space. The only thing you need to take from this, if you can read them or not, is that they really use a lot of the same terminology. So AI RMF, remember this terminology right here? This is really the core. This is the core language that many of these frameworks are speaking. If you can do this, one, you can tie it back to NIST and say, why are you doing it? Well, the feds said I should do it. And it also speaks and plays well in other scenarios, like in education. Here's an organization called EdSafe that's put together their EdSafe AI or Safe AI framework, talking about many of the things that NIST AI RMF is. You can't do it alone. You need others at your organization who are going to buy in, just like you do with security management. Look for those externalities. Map again. You're always going to be missing shadow AI at your organization. Somebody's going to be doing something somewhere, whether sanctioned or otherwise, that should be under the governance umbrella. Start really small. Gen AI is really, really hot. So get some momentum at your organization to get a Gen AI policy in place. There are some good examples out there. Benchmark, but don't copy. Don't just cut and paste from someone else. So there's a lot of colleges and universities that have Gen AI policies. I don't want to see at a manufacturer that you have a Gen AI policy that references academic integrity, right? But you would be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be, at how often that kind of thing happens. Realize the limitations of a generalized framework. That NIST AI risk management framework, it's built for open AI, and it's built for a two-person shop that's using Gen AI to create marketing content. That's not a great fit, right? So you're going to be picking and choosing. There are going to be things that fit, things that don't fit. For example, in relation to model training, there's discussion under NIST AI RMF about how to manage risk in relation to model training. You may not be training the model, so that may not be for you. But you may need to pick and choose. Ask those dumb questions. Look at what others are doing in your industry. And keep going. Just like security, it's a kind of wash, rinse, and repeat kind of scenario. So I am at time. I'll open the floor for questions or comments, if there are any. And thanks for bearing with me through the technical glitch. Questions, comments? Great, we solved AI entirely, right? You guys are going to go back and put together perfect governance procedures. Great. Well, thanks everyone for coming, and enjoy the rest of the conference.